Historic Resources Commission, and at 6 p.m. on October 19th. And we've just lost power. No?
Yeah, we're gonna hang on a second, because now we're off the air and we've got my computer decided to restart. I'm sorry.
It's always something.
Yep, I see City Hall video is just
It
frozen.
looks like we're still on Zoom though, so should I
Yeah,
go?
since
I
all
still see you.
run through here, I mean, it might work, I just
Okay,
don't know if people can hear, won't be able to hear.
Jody, can you hear us?
You find out, I mean.
Yes.
Okay, I'd say continue.
All right, let's continue. I'm calling the meeting to order. Avery, would you like to go through the preliminary info?
yes, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the October 19th Historic Resources Commission meeting. My name is Avery Kerner and with me is Lynn Braddock-Zollner, the Historic Resources Administrator. Together, we will work alongside the chair to facilitate the meeting proceedings tonight. Before we begin, I have just a few reminders to share with everyone. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel, Cable Channel 25. For those who are attending the meeting virtually, please remember to mute yourself when you are not actively speaking to help minimize distractions. When the chair calls for public comment on an item, anyone attending in person may approach the podium to speak. If you are attending the meeting virtually and would like to provide public comment on an item, please use the raise your hand feature to be called upon. We also ask that everyone state their name before they speak to ensure that everyone is able to follow along. And with that, I'll turn the meeting back over to the chair.
Thanks, Avery. Let's take a roll call vote of the commission. Commissioner Haynes,
Commissioner Haynes present.
Commissioner John,
Sorry.
Commissioner Johnson is absent as well. Commissioner Izell,
Here.
Commissioner Klein,
Present.
Commissioner Holly is absent, Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
and Chair Coleman is here. Moving on to communications, it looks like we have received communications from the State Historic Preservation Officer and the general public.
You have several nominations. As part of your certified local government agreement, it allows the Historic Resources Commission to comment on National Register nominations that are going before the Sites Board of Review. You have 3 of those this evening, 2 in Lawrence and 1 in Eudora. Typically, the Historic Resources Commission looks at these nominations and determines whether or not they choose to send a letter of recommendation. If there's something inaccurate or needs to be added to the nomination, this would also be the time to do that.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions about the nominations presented?
I would just say that all 3 nominations are remarkable, need to be done. Glad they're happening. Trinity Lutheran has a fantastic history, as does the First Methodist Church of Eudora, and certainly the First Presbyterian. So I found out how and why it left the corner and moved out to Clinton. So that was helpful. So I strongly recommend each of those 3 nominations.
This is Chair Meyer. I would recommend them also. I have not done the historical research to determine if something should be added or subtracted from the nominations.
Neither have I. But I do feel that each of the 3 are worthy of nomination. And I believe our procedure is to write a letter of support and send that along with these nominations.
Do you need a motion to that effect?
Yes, I do.
I so move that our esteemed Historic Resources Administrator, Lynn Zollner, write a letter on behalf of the commissioners supporting the nominations of Trinity Lutheran Historic District, First Methodist Church of Eudora, and the First Presbyterian Church in Lawrence for the state register. No, for the national. I think.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Ezell, I second.
Wonderful. We'll take a vote. Commissioner Haynes,
Commissioner Haynes, aye.
Commissioner Ezell,
Commissioner Ezell, aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
and Chair Coleman is an aye. We have 5 ayes and 2 absent. And it looks like we also have a staff report on the rezoning of 2111 East 15th Street. Did you want to present that or?
Commissioner Meyer, this is a communication regarding 2111 East 15th Street. That is also located later on your agenda under miscellaneous items, and staff would recommend that you discuss that communication with that miscellaneous item.
We will do so. Okay, moving on to disclosure of ex parte communications. Has any commissioner had discussions outside of the meeting?
I had communications with a member of the Lawrence Preservation Alliance and 2 members of the Brook Creek Neighborhood Association.
Any others?
And could
I had
you-
communication with Chuck Magrill, who emailed about the proposed development east of Oak Hill, and I forwarded his emails to the committee under the Watkins Museum that deals with the preservation of the cemetery, and to Lynn as well.
Excellent.
And Commissioner Klein, could you state what your communications were with those 2 groups?
The LPA was in regard to some general plans, future plans for the Historic Resources Commission, actions that we might take, which I believe are underway already. And the other 2 were in regard at Brook Creek were in regard to the same thing as Mr. Haynes, Commissioner Haynes mentioned, as well as a personal friend of mine who happened to call me today, who happens to live in that neighborhood.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of abstention for specific agenda items tonight by the commissioners? No, I hear none. And the last, do we have any committee reports this month?
We do not have any committee reports this month.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have meeting minutes from September 21st.
I move approval of the September 21st minutes.
It's Commissioner Ezell,
Sure.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein and Commissioner Ezell. We'll take a vote, a roll call vote. Commissioner Haynes,
Commissioner Haynes, aye.
Commissioner Ezell,
Commissioner Ezell, aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Commissioner Klein, aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Chair Coleman is an aye. 5 to 0, 2 absent. And then item B.2 Administrative Approvals. We have several items on the list. Any comments or discussion related to these? Nope. Could I have a motion to approve?
It's Commissioner Ezell, I move to approve the administrative items.
And a second?
Commissioner Klein seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Ezell and Commissioner Klein. We'll take a vote. Commissioner Haynes,
Commissioner Haynes, aye.
Commissioner Ezell,
Commissioner Ezell, aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Commissioner Klein, aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
and Chair Coleman is an aye. Passes 5 ayes. 0 to 2 absence. At this time, we'll take public comment for items not on the agenda, which I'll remind you that the property near Oak Hill Cemetery, we have moved to the end of the agenda. So that will happen at that time.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Brown, Lawrence Preservation Alliance. The Lawrence Preservation Alliance and the local branch of the NAACP is proud to present a historic homes walking tour that has a focus on aspects of our community's Black history. In particular, 1921, when the local branch received its charter from the national organization. There were 50 signers of that original charter in Lawrence, and 36 of them had addresses within the city limits. LPA feels like 15 of those houses they were residing in when they signed are still here, although 2 or 3 of them are probably altered. But there were 3 primary leaders in that organization, in that drive to start the chapter, that are within the tour area that we're walking from 12th to 14th Street and Connecticut to Pennsylvania Street. Those 3 primary houses we will focus on with a short history presentation in front of each house, 5 to 7 minutes. But then the whole tour, there'll be various things to talk about as we go along. We've been working with our historian for this project is Commissioner Klein. She's done a tremendous job. She has a lot of information and has done a lot of research on this community's Black historical figures in our community's history. The handout that she's developed for tour goers alone is worth the $10 cost of the ticket for the tour. And she will give one of the presentations. Second presentation will be given by Ursula Miner, the longtime president of the NAACP. And the third presentation will be given by a Black woman educator in Lawrence who grew up in East Lawrence as a child in a large family. And those folks will be walking along the tour with us, and we'll have various things to say as we go along. Of course, we're LPA, we're interested in housing types, various structures. So we're going to have Stan Hernley with us, also walking, helping us identify certain housing styles and talk about various things that an architectural historian might notice, whereas we would not. So that's quite a group for us to be walking with. It's a 10-block tour, take 90 minutes. There's 2 tour dates. The first one is October 29th. That's a Sunday, 1:30 to 3. The second one is a week later, November 5th. And as of this afternoon, we're capping the tickets at 20 per tour. We don't want too big a group. We're outside listening to people talk. And as of this afternoon, there were 8 tickets available for the 29th and 5 for November 5th. So the tickets are going fast. Like I said, they're $10 a piece. The last thing that's interesting about this tour area, I've been walking it and thinking about it and learning more about it for probably 3 or 4 months that's taken to develop this tour, is, to my knowledge, there is not one structure in the tour area that has any historic protections at all. National, state, local, environs, nada. So that's an interesting thing for us to think about as we take this tour. For all the commissioners, anyone listening or viewing, if there's tickets left, we'd love to have you. We're super excited about it and looking forward to learning and sharing information that we know. Thanks.
Thank you. That sounds like an exciting event. Any other public comment? No? So then we'll move, oh, yes.
Just want a clarification. So the question on the Oak Hill Cemetery environs, is that listed as an agenda item? So I should wait until,
Yes, that is listed
Thank you.
at the end in the miscellaneous category. Okay, public hearing item number 1, DR 23-00330.
Okay, good evening again, commissioners. This item, okay, so this item is DR 23-00330. And with this application, the applicant is requesting to rehabilitate the existing accessory structure at 627 Louisiana Street and to construct a new 1.5-story accessory structure in the northwest corner of the property. The proposed project requires a certificate of appropriateness review and state law review because it's located in the environs of 2 locally listed properties, which are the Wilder Clark House at 643 Indiana Street and the Henry Martin House at 627 Ohio Street. It's also located in the Old West Lawrence Historic District, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Standard 9 of Chapter 22, the illustrative design criteria listed in Section 22-505, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards 1, 2, 5, 6, 9, and 10 apply to the proposed project. This is a map showing the location of the proposed project at 627 Louisiana Street in relation to the 2 locally listed properties and within the Old West Lawrence Historic District. The subject property is in the center of the image outlined in light blue. The listed properties are in dark blue and the Old West Lawrence Historic District is in red. These are photos of the existing accessory structure on the property. In the top left corner of the screen is the front east elevation of the accessory structure, which faces Louisiana Street. The other 3 photos show the existing facade on the north, south, and west elevations of the structure, which are primarily composed of concrete masonry units. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing accessory structure from a single-car garage into an art studio. The improvements proposed to the existing structure would include installing a wood-burning fireplace and chimney on the northeast part of the structure, which you can see here on the proposed west and east elevations at the top of the screen. They would also be replacing the garage doors on the east elevation of the structure with new Anderson 100 series windows, covering the exposed concrete masonry units with horizontal lap siding, and removing 2 small windows on the south side of the structure and then 1 small window on the west side of the structure. And then these are renderings submitted by the applicant to show the accessory structure with the proposed improvements. And this is the proposed site plan submitted by the applicant, which shows the existing accessory structure on the south end of the property at the bottom of the screen, and then the location of the proposed new accessory structure in the northwest corner of the property. The proposed accessory structure would be located in what's currently an open yard adjacent to the alley to the west. These are the submitted elevations of the proposed accessory structure. The structure would be 1.5 stories tall to accommodate a storage space above a 2-car garage. The garage door of the structure would open towards the alley to the west, and the structure itself would be constructed using horizontal lap siding, Anderson 100 series windows, asphalt roofing, and stone facing around the base of the structure. And then these are the renderings of the proposed accessory structure that were submitted by the applicant. So the proposed project generally meets the applicable standards of review. The only concern for staff would be the wood burning fireplace and chimney proposed on the northeast part of the existing accessory structure. The proposed wood burning fireplace and chimney would be atypical for structures of this type. So staff is of the opinion that if the wood burning fireplace and chimney were removed from the project would meet the applicable standards for review and would recommend approval. And with that, I'd be happy to help answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you.
I was wondering if an architect well, let's see. If you could elaborate on the problem with the chimney, because from what I could tell, the house already has a chimney and there's other homes in the environs, in the neighborhood that have chimneys as well. So I'm not clear about why the chimney is not appropriate.
So the existing accessory structure is a small single-car garage, and so a wood-burning fireplace and chimney would not be historically seen on structures of this type in the historic district.
So you're saying it's because it's on a garage? That makes a difference?
Correct.
I personally don't see a problem with it, but that's me.
Is there any way that the chimney could be shrunk or changed in any way to where it would be acceptable? Or is it just because it's an accessory structure and it detracts from the main structure?
My understanding is that the proposed chimney would alter the roof shape of the existing structure, and with it being a single car garage, that would alter that roof form for the structure of that type. And so I don't know if the applicant could speak to other designs that may not require a chimney on the roof, but that would be.
Well, it's possible that the applicant could answer all of our questions if we would let them present
Okay.
their position, I suppose. Is the applicant present?
Hi, yeah. Can you see me?
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay. I'm Roy Lay and I'm talking on behalf of the owners. Yeah, I was pleased that you recommended approval of the windows and the siding and all that, but I would like to ask the commission to consider at least some form of fireplace on this structure. I would call this a Tudor style structure, but it's a little odd. As I spoke to Lynn, it looks like it was built post 1950, but Lynn's records, I believe, state it was built in 1940. But even at 1940, it seems a little late for this style to be a prime example of Tudor style. So it's also not really the style of the main house, which used to be a 3.5-story house. It was quite large, but they had a fire in the 70s and just reshaped the gable on the end and renovated it pretty nicely. And they were able to preserve a lot of the original features of the house. But I would say generally it doesn't feel to be the same style as the house. So I figured also the fact that it wasn't really a prime example of Tudor would give a little bit more flexibility, but I understand that it might be just the fact that it's a garage structure originally versus a little accessory structure like a detached kitchen or something like that you might have found on a house of this era. So I'm open to modifying it and making it less bulky, I guess. A lot of Tudor fireplaces kind of had a stepped pattern on them and kind of diminished as they worked their way up. It also could be shorter because the owners are going to switch to gas instead of wood burning. So those are two things to consider as you debate this. I also noticed there's a project at 742 Indiana Street that looks like it was approved between 2016 and 2018, according to the aerial maps. And I would like to know if you are going to reject this, why that one was approved. It might have been different conditions. I can see it's outside the environs, but it's still a fireplace on a detached structure in Old West Lawrence. So I'm hoping you will approve this, but I'm happy to answer any more questions you've got. So thank you.
Thank you. I in looking at this submittal. Oh, sure. Is there any public comment before we get into a discussion?
Doesn't look like we have any online public
Nope.
comment.
Okay, without seeing any public comment, we'll go straight into the discussion. I don't see a problem with the fireplace myself, as Commissioner Klein has stated her opinion. I see that the property is within Old West Lawrence and, you know, the environs of the other two listed properties. The accessory structure is now a garage and was built as one, and it's being converted into a studio. And I understand that. And logically, to me, because of that conversion and because it's in the district, that the changes to that structure should be in character with the rest of the district, and they are building a new garage. So I wouldn't want it to look like there were two garages on the site. And I guess that's where my mind is going with this, and looking at the chapter 22 and what we're charged to do with it today. Any other thoughts?
I think the fireplace is shown, or the chimney as shown, is very bulky and large compared even to the ones on the much larger house. And if they could switch to a gas fireplace, it doesn't look like you could run the flue out the back because there's an overhang there, but you could run it up through the roof and maybe, I don't know, make it match the roof to where it doesn't stand out. I don't know. There's got to be a way to, I would think, to where this wouldn't be such a big deal. Roy, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, it was a recent change to switch it to gas, so I'm not 100% sure if we have enough wall space and clearances, just code-wise, to get a wall vent on these. So if the fireplace were not to be approved, we would still need some sort of a chimney to achieve it, and it's going to be exponentially harder to get it way up to the ridge of the building or the side of the building, rather than just building a chimney out of either stone or brick or something smaller. But
well, if it was gas, it could be a much shorter as well.
It could be much shorter. That's true. I think the homeowners do like the aesthetic of it, though, so I'm fighting for that. But it's more that it's there rather than it being exactly like what we've drawn. So we could, like you said, reduce the bulk, make it more similar to what's on the main house, or even go the Tudor route and do some kind of a stepped fireplace that's larger on the bottom than it is on the top. But it's kind of an odd thing because it's supposed to be subservient to the main house, but it's not the same style. We tried really hard to make the new garage match all the original features on the house pre-fire. So yeah, we have some flexibility. I feel removing the fireplace would be unfortunate. The chimney, at least.
This is Jody Meyer. I'm just sitting here looking at the main house and the plans. I mean, it looks like the chimney is actually larger than the chimneys on the main house. I'm not opposed to a fireplace in there. It just looks a lot larger than the main house. And then I think with the brick against the dark shingles makes it look maybe even makes it look larger than what it might be. That's just kind of my concern about it now that Neil spelled it out like that.
Yeah, it would be very easy to reduce the scale of it, and probably would help the budget as well.
Is this something we could send to the ARC and
We can.
Yes.
And I should say too, this is Jody Meyer again. I didn't drive past the location, but it does seem like that's also visible from like the main side. Like if you're on the street in front of the house, like the chimney would be like pretty visible, would it not?
yeah,
It's set back, but yes, it's-
Right, set back, but like direct
Right.
line of sight.
Parallel.
Well, it seems that the consensus might be to send it to ARC.
Unless we can, I mean, unless we can agree, to just put in to move it with the fireplace and chimney, with the fireplace in a smaller, less, what's the word?
obtrusive.
Obtrusive chimney. Would that work? Or do we have to get specific
I
about
think
the
we
size of the
would need
chimney?
Okay.
Yeah, get specific about the size or how much less or
This is Roy. Is this something though that maybe Lynn could administratively approve if I significantly reduce it? I know that a lot of times we go to the ARC, but it's a time issue, and we submitted this like 6 weeks ago, and I know the owners are anxious to get started. Is there any way to expedite this by me giving you a commitment to reducing it significantly or matching the main house?
yeah, I don't think that could be done. I think if it's there, if it's there, the commission could vote to approve it as it stands, or we could vote to send it to ARC. Or we could vote if they were willing to remove it entirely. We could vote for that. But I don't,
So we can't approve it with a smaller,
with conditions, no, that's why we have the ARC. Just establish those conditions.
Something this small, I would think the ARC probably could deal with relatively quickly. Maybe.
that's what I'm hoping, yeah.
Hate to speak for them.
I agree, yeah. Is that possible? Within a week or two?
This is Jody Meyer. I think that's probably a question for the ARC members. It sounds to me like Roy's saying, you got to meet with the ARC, then bring it back here. So we're looking at it like maybe a November meeting. I think that's what he was trying to avoid. So
Yeah, it just feels like an unnecessary burden if I'm willing to shrink it, and if that's acceptable. I mean, unless the ARC is wanting some really detailed or intricate design, I mean, it's just kind of a dimensional question, but I guess, leave it up to you.
And I'm not sure of Commissioner Hawley's schedule and how quickly we could get a meeting arranged.
Well, again, as Ron's pointing, or Roy, I'm sorry, is pointing out, even if he met with Jay Holly or, another architect, we're still talking the November meeting before we could approve it.
But the commission is fine with the rest of the submittal. I feel like we need
Jay here.
partial.
And we give the go ahead to the rest of the project and
Yeah, I
just hold up.
let do it.
Is that possible, Lynn?
You can separate, since they're two different structures, you can approve the new accessory structure and send the rehabilitation of the existing structure to the Architectural Review Committee. They would meet before, and this would be placed on the November agenda.
Does that help you and your client at all, Roy? You're muted.
What does the timeline look like then? Is that so that ARC would meet when?
Between now and the November meeting.
Okay. And the November meeting is what, the 16th?
That sounds right.
Okay.
So at least you could get started on the accessory structure. But hold off on, again, whatever applies to the chimney size of it. I'm not sure if that's possible. Is it possible?
You're asking me.
Yes, I'm asking you, Roy, if it's
Sorry.
possible that you could get started on the accessory structure, but still plan it so that you can still figure out the chimney later.
It'd be 2 permits, right? That's what we're talking.
Yeah, 2 permits.
Well, anytime we split up a permit, we have to charge the homeowner for that extra time.
This
and-
would require 2 building permits if
Yeah.
they're 2 separate structures.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you have to have a completely separate permit for each structure.
We could apply for a permit though, right? And still wait for the HRC approval. Like we could apply for a permit, assuming you'll approve a smaller fireplace, and then that permit is granted pending HRC approval.
Yes, you can submit for the building permit. They will flag it for historic review, and then as soon as the HRC approves the project, that historic review would be released. So in theory, you could, if all your other outstanding code issues are addressed, you could get the permit the day after the HRC meeting.
Okay. I just know we're running into cold weather, so there is some concrete work that will have to be done on the existing structure. So I'm a little worried if we leave it till then. That could be an issue, but I understand the process. So
Well, do I hear a motion for either sending it to ARC or approving it as it stands?
So Lynn, are there 3 parts to this? You've got 2 accessory structures, and then you have a remodel on the main building.
It's a remodel of 1 accessory structure and the construction of a new accessory structure.
Just 2 parts.
Yes.
Okay, so I would move that we send the art studio accessory structure to the ARC and approve the garage structure.
Second, Commissioner Klein.
Thank you for that motion and the second. We'll take a vote. Commissioner Haynes,
Commissioner Haynes, aye.
Commissioner Ezell,
Commissioner Ezell, aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Commissioner Klein, aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
and Chair Coleman is an aye. So vote passes 5-0, sending it to ARC. Thank you. We are at item number 2. DR 23-00331.
This is DR 23-00331. It's for new construction to be located at 815, 821 Vermont Street. It is located in the Downtown Urban Conservation Overlay District and subject to the downtown design guidelines. It's also located in the environs of several properties listed in the Lawrence Register of Historic Places and requires a certificate of appropriateness. The property that it's located in the environs of, or it's the Lucy Hobbs Taylor House directly to the north at 809 Vermont Street, Fire Station number 1 at 745 Vermont Street, and the Carnegie Library at 200 West 9th Street. This shows the property location outlined in the light blue here, with the Lucy Hobbs Taylor directly to the north, Fire Station number 1, and then the Carnegie Library to the south. This shows the existing property. There's currently an orchard there. It's been vacant for some time. So showing a different view of the vacant land. This is the main elevation or the east elevation of the structure. You'll notice that there is brick, CMU, split face block, metal panels, and balconies on the front. The storefront does not have a typical 3-part storefront with a bulkhead, display windows, and transom. This is showing the rear elevation, again with balconies, the metal panels, and the CMU block. This is showing that north elevation, which will be adjacent to the Lucy Hobbs Taylor house. And this is the south elevation that will be adjacent to the 1-story commercial U-shaped building. The applicant has submitted a rendering, which is on the screen now. This will be a 3-story building. It will have approximately 9,561 square foot footprint. It will be 40 feet tall. The downtown design guidelines apply, as well as standard 9 and chapter 22, and the illustrative criteria in chapter 22, 506.1. Staff is recommending that the project be referred to the Architecture Review Committee for design refinement that will help the project better meet the applicable standards and guidelines. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions you may have.
Commissioner Klein, I had a question. I was noticing there's a painted mural on the south side of the Vermont Street Station, but it wasn't clear to me in the drawings if that would be if the building would leave that open, like if there's a little courtyard to leave the mural exposed and allow people to see the mural, or if the building is like abutting or next to how far it is, from the Vermont Street Station.
The building would go all the way to the property line, so there would be no space to view the mural.
So there's no mural. I mean, the mural would be covered.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I did have let's see. This is a photograph that was included in your packet of the Lawrence house that used to be adjacent to the Lucy Hobbs Taylor house. And it burned down, I believe, in the early 70s.
And that filled the entire lot we're talking about, or half of it?
It filled all the way, I believe, to the structure to the south, but there was a gap between it and the Lucy Hobbs Taylor house, and you can see that right here.
Okay. I'd like to address the Vermont Street Station historic property, if I may. I don't know if now is the time to do it.
I believe we should hear from the applicant
Okay.
first. Is the applicant present? Yes.
Good evening, Paul Werner Architects. We'll go easy on you tonight. We are happy to visit with the ARC to go over the materials. Appreciate staff's input. Feel like we got a good project for a vacant lot that's been there vacant for a very long time. I will say I'm catching a little flack. I've got a lot of people that really wish this was a 4-story building. So you guys can rest easy. Our client just wants 3. I'm glad it's not 2. As we all know, there's only so much land downtown. So, but I think 3 stories is appropriate. I think it fits. I think we've set it off from the building to the north enough. So happy to visit about materials. A couple things. Not all of you guys were on. I can leave this. We do actually the climbing gym on Vermont Street. We have approved metal panels for the addition. Unfortunately, this building hasn't been built yet, but so there has been metal panels approved on Vermont Street. Like to think, the library's got some pretty new materials, the parking garage. So somewhere down the line, there's got to be some new materials on some new buildings. So we look forward to talking about that. Before everybody panics, I'd agree that board and batten is probably not appropriate on the downtown building. The CMU, I think it'll probably help us when we're sitting around looking at a plan that it really is just off the alley and it's the parking garage. So, on one hand, I think CMU for a parking garage seems appropriate. I don't think you'll, where we have it, I don't think the intention is you'll ever see it from Vermont Street. But again, we look towards visiting about the materials. The mural, we've thought about it. I don't think I'm gonna get myself in trouble with the fire code and how I have to separate the buildings. I don't think I have any choice but to cover up the mural. But we have thought about if there's some options to replace it somewhere or an opportunity to do something else along those lines. From that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Werner? No? Okay, let's hear some discussion. Commissioner Klein, you're about to say?
I wanted to give some important history. The property that is currently the Vermont Street station was the property of Lemuel King, who was an extraordinary African-American born free in the state of Ohio. All of that property was his from the 1870s to around 1929, which is when the Skelly gas station was built, and that's why it's called the Vermont Street Station off of Skelly. He owned a livery, stables, feed barn, and a King's Hotel was the property to the south of the whole area. So I have been anxious to have a marker placed on that property in honor of Lemuel King, so that people would know what it was before it became the Skelly gas station, before it became Vermont Street Station. So that's kind of an aside. But I guess what I'm saying is that the southern property is pretty special. Was pretty special. And then, of course, we know about the Lucy Hobbs Taylor home is incredibly special. Another question I had is anyone, I don't know who planted the orchard. I don't know if that was the previous owners of Headmasters or if it's a different group. And my question was, is it still being maintained or not?
It was our former mayor, Bob Shum. He planted all the orchards, so it could be, hope he's not listening, taxed as agricultural instead of commercial property. I think it's still being maintained right now. And I think people are starting to ask if they can salvage some apple trees or whatever's out.
That was my next question. Yes.
So I think that is on people's heads that they would like to salvage the trees before somebody just kind of makes them go away.
Yeah, because many of them look small enough that they could be moved.
Yeah, they have not been there
Great.
that long.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? No? Any discussion, or would anyone like to make a motion? I think it's a great idea to send it to the ARC, but of course
one of the things I would like the ARC to consider is the total height of the structure. I am concerned that the 3 stories would be approximately 40 feet tall, and the Lucy Hobbs Taylor building is 32 feet tall. I don't know if there's any leeway of 8 feet that can be played with or not, but that would be something I would want the ARC to pay attention to. And I'd also like them to pay attention to the mural too. I don't know if it's possible. Again, for some reason, I recall looking at one of the images on that side of the building, and it looked to me like there was a courtyard just where the mural is, for people to sit. And that's why it wasn't clear to me. So if there's any way at all possible to save the mural, I would like to see that done. The mural talks about a Negro school. I suspect, I can't prove it yet, but I suspect that might have referred to the Vermont Street School, which was a school built for Black children in 1870. And then it was turned over to white children. And the Black children moved to Chapel School, Presbyterian Chapel School, which was located between 9th and Kentucky near the Central High School. I may be confusing things a little bit, but just to give you some background, I would be interested in knowing more about the mural and why it says Negro School on it. If it is referring to the Vermont Street School and if that's where the school was located. Originally, I thought the Vermont Street School was further up on 6th Street, near 6th Street, closer to 6th Street on Vermont, but I could be wrong. So I just I would like the ARC to find out about that, or to see what they can do about it, is my point.
Do we know when the mural was painted?
I don't recall.
I don't recall either.
Sure.
But the fire was in the mid-90s?
Yeah. Late 80s.
Late 80s? Okay. Okay, do any other commissioners have any points of discussion? Would we like to make a motion?
This is Commissioner Ezell. I move that we send it to the ARC.
Thank you. I will second. Chair Coleman will second that. Let's take a roll call vote. Commissioner Haynes,
Commissioner Haynes, aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye, as long as the other suggestions that I added to the ARC are considered.
would you like to make a new motion?
Well, I would like to, yes, if I may amend the motion to say that I move we approve this and I move that we recommend that this proposal go to the Architectural Review Committee, and that they consider lowering the height of the new structure, and also considering if they might be able to save the mural on the north wall of the Vermont Street Station, if that's possible. And again, also deal with reconsidering the materials and some design factors. That would be my motion.
This is Jody Meyer. I think that those are things that can be discussed. I want to make it clear that my vote to send it to the HRC is not dependent on lowering the height of the building. So, I mean, as long as those are things, I guess, that they're considering, that's fine, but I'm not making it I wouldn't consider that conditional on approval.
I would agree with that statement.
So you have a.
So I guess the question is, there's been a motion and a second. We didn't take a vote on the original motion.
We did
And
not.
now Commissioner Klein has made a motion to amend her original motion, and we don't have a second on that yet.
Right.
So I will rescind my motion to amend. And we're back to Commissioner Ezell's motion.
Sorry if I got that confused about who did what on the first motion.
Okay, my first motion was just to refer it to the ARC.
And my second was that. So we can say that Commissioner Klein's motion was a discussion, and we can go to the vote if there's no further discussion. Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Ezell,
Aye.
Commissioner Haynes,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Nay.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
and Chair Coleman is aye. And we will take under your items under consideration in the ARC, Commissioner
Yeah.
Klein. All right, moving on to miscellaneous items. Item number 1 is 2111 East 15th Street. What is our procedure now? Lynn, do we revert back to the items that were at the beginning?
Well, this was, and I believe Commissioner Haynes can correct me if I'm wrong, but his concerns and questions were also about the new development at 2111 East 15th Street. And then you have communications on this project as well. So perhaps the best opportunity is for Commissioner Klein and then Commissioner Haynes to explain why they wanted to put this on the agenda, and then have public comment for the communication that you received this afternoon, and then any other comment that you might get, any other public comment.
Okay, that sounds great.
If I may go first, this is Commissioner Haynes. I apologize if I was a little unclear in my communication. I don't have any official concerns about this project. I was merely doing what Chuck requested me to do, which was to forward his concerns in his emails to our committee that falls under the heading of the museum, and to Jen Klein, Commissioner Klein, and to Lynn Zollner. So those are my only official roles in this.
Thank you for that clarification.
This is Commissioner Meyer. Just to be clear about this, I mean, the communications and then the miscellaneous items, basically, we are receiving information from individuals. These are not action items. Correct?
Well, as we discussed at your meeting last month, the Historic Resources Commission can comment on zoning applications that go to the Planning Commission and the City Commission. And I believe after that discussion, Commissioner Klein had some additional information she wanted to discuss. And so it's not too late, since you didn't take an action on this at the last meeting, that you can discuss it and take an action on it this evening.
Okay, this is Commissioner Meyer again, but we took an action by taking no action. So we don't necessarily have to take any further action unless somebody wants to.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and I believe that we came to that decision in our last meeting because it is a rezoning, and we will, because it's in the environs of the listed property at the Oak Hill Cemetery, we will see the development plans as they come through the process.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Perhaps, well, yes, hopefully we will. Hopefully we'll know.
Actually, the next part of this process would be to do a site plan. And that is an administrative process through the planning department and does not require review by the Historic Resources Commission. The next time you would see anything to do with this application would be when they submit for building permits.
Yes.
So the reason I wanted us to talk about this issue, first off, the issue on The issue as it stands right now is that the developer is asking to have this property rezoned to a multi RM 32, I believe, which is a very large zoning, multi-dimensional, multi-family zoning, it's a lot. And so the rezoning plan that we have in front of us, as far as I can tell, does not say anything, does not address the impact of construction on Oak Hill Cemetery in that southeast corner, nor does it talk about, well, and because our concern is Oak Hill, so I'm going to talk about Oak Hill Cemetery. And there's nothing here that talks about the impact of construction. And it doesn't seem to me, I don't know every single step of the whole process, but as you just described, Lynn, it sounds to me like the HRC may not have an opportunity to talk about the potential impact of sandblasting a 10 to 12 foot high rock ledge on the impact of that sandblasting on the southeast corner of the gravestones and monuments of Oak Hill Cemetery. That's my deepest concern right now as a HRC commissioner. And I'm not seeing anything that addresses that construction information, the impact of that sandblasting in front of the planning commissioners for next week on Wednesday, nor to any possibility of when we might, if we'll ever get to see this again. And I'm concerned about having the construction move forward and then having the damage done after the fact. And I don't want that to happen to Oak Hill Cemetery. And you can see the contour map that was supplied. I don't know if you can put that on the screen or not. Anyway, but it's a rock. The reason it has, from what I can tell, the reason that property has not been developed in the past is because there's a lot of rock underneath it, including that corner. And there's also a flood, the agricultural property on the east side is a floodplain. And then where they would sandblast the rock ledge would be coming through where the what's that called? Is that the creek, I think, that comes through there? And that's where when there's heavy rains, that's where it floods. So there's multiple issues going on with this proposal, and the rezoning is the first step. And that's why I wanted us to talk about the potential impact of construction on the southeast corner of Oak Hill Cemetery.
Okay. And I believe that in the rezoning process, that's the first step. And it would be during the building permitting or maybe the site plan, depending on how heavy the earth movement is, if it results from that, where they would talk about the blasting and other things. So on the site plan, the rezoning, is that the appropriate time to set the setbacks? You'll see the staff report suggests that we consider a larger setback, I think is what it's saying. Is that correct, Lynn?
Yes, and I believe the applicant has agreed to a larger setback, and they are in conversations, I'm not sure where those are, with planning staff about reducing the overall density of the project to 20 units per acre.
Okay.
And I think this would be an appropriate time to receive the communication that we had on this project.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it would, because I feel like I don't have enough information right now.
Right.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Chuck Magrill, and I'm a neighbor of Oak Hill Cemetery. I've lived in that location for a little over 40 years now, so pretty darn familiar with the place and familiar with the subject property that's being discussed here as well. as Commissioner Klein mentioned, what I see when we look at the environs of Oak Hill, which is, I think, by all accounts, an extraordinary memorial area for our city and a great historic significance, that what we see in that photo with that rock cut through there, for this concept plan as it's been proposed, there would have to be a driveway coming through that area that's going to require quite a bit of blasting to remove 10 to 12 feet of rock burden to allow them to come to grade with 15th Street at that location. I'm not an expert at detonation. I don't pretend to be, but I think that it is a concern. We know that detonation oftentimes causes problems with foundations, concrete structures in the vicinity because of the seismic waves. There are very plausible reasons to be concerned about some of the stability of the monuments in that part of Oak Hill Cemetery. And I think it would be appropriate for this body to comment to Planning Commission, urge, if nothing else, conditions be applied to establish the safety, the sanctity of those memorials that exist in the cemetery, since indeed this project, and particularly that most dramatic part of blasting, would be within the environs of Oak Hill Cemetery. Again, like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm a neighbor that's lived in that area and watched over that area quite a bit for decades now. And I would certainly welcome any questions or comments or anything of that sort that I may help to provide some insight with.
Thank you very much. I wonder how we know there's going to be blasting. I know logically, if you build a road from a street and that street has a rock ledge next to it. But when I'm looking at on the grading plan, it looks like it's pretty steep on the west side, but near the middle of the property where one of the roads is, then maybe it looks like there's 3 roads, right?
No, you are correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there are 4 access points that are being described in this concept plan. And there had been others originally to the south going into the neighborhood that's to the south of this project. There will likely be access that is returned to that area because the fire department has made it known that they don't like not having access to 3-story high density apartment buildings. They need to be able to assure that they can bring ladder trucks in. And so they're going to pose conditions on this concept plan as you see it right now. There are a lot of problems with this concept plan. So, I mean, to put a whole lot of faith in it is not very wise, but at the same time, to ignore what is being presented is also not very wise. So what you see primarily on the west edge of that property is a driveway that is going to connect to 15th Street near the peak of that hill and immediately across from the corner of Oak Hill Cemetery. And again, the photo that you see with the measuring device, that's indicating the height of that rock, that overburden at that spot. So it will require a lot of rock removal because the sight line requirements for particularly coming onto a sloping hill like that is going to be significant for traffic safety. So there will be a lot of rock removed from that area.
And we know it will be blasted and not chipped.
Generally, when you're dealing with large amounts like that, blasting is what's used to establish the fractures that allow you to remove it. Yes. So this is not getting a backhoe out and scraping some things away. This will be a more involved project than that.
Yes, I know that there are different methods of removing rock and different monitoring safeguards that can be put into place on historic and other buildings to make sure that the rock removal is not impacting those. I'm just not sure what the appropriate stage for the development is to put that out there.
Right, that's my question too. Because I don't want us to lose an opportunity to comment to the planning commission. Because as far as I'm concerned, the plan that we're currently looking at right now, because it's dealing with rezoning, part of what shocks me is that the planning office said that a traffic impact study, drainage study, downstream sanitary sewer analysis, and plan, whatever the rest of that means, was not applicable to the project, which in my view leaves out a heck of a lot of information. I mean, that's just unfathomable to me that they wouldn't have to provide basic information on that, even for a concept.
I think those are site plan requirements.
Well, again, after the site plan, will we have an opportunity to look at this? And I don't want to lose that opportunity for us to comment to the powers that be
Right.
that we have concerns about Oak Hill Cemetery and about the potential damage that could be done with whatever process they're going to use to remove rock to create these entrances into the project that are right, like, as you say, one of the entrances is right at that southwest corner directly across from Oak Hill. And I'm really concerned about that.
Well, I think you're correct. This body does not have the ability to reject a rezoning request. Technically, the planning commission does not even. The deciding body will be the city commission. However, each one of the commissions has the ability to make recommendations. And I think expressing concerns, we know that there are conditions that planning staff has placed on this rezoning application. So it's not inappropriate to add a request for an additional concern and condition having to do with the appropriate protection for the historic aspect of Oak Hill Cemetery.
Not to mention the next door houses. But I know that's not our purview, but it's a massive project. It's massive. And I just want us to take the opportunity.
There are many problems with this project, and its progression is very uncertain. And I may have mentioned in the email that, there are, you will not want to be here next Wednesday evening for the Planning Commission meeting. I know at this point there are somewhere in the 50 to 60 public comments that have been prepared already, and that's the start of it. So I pity the planning. I know they have a long meeting on Monday night as well, and then their Wednesday night meeting could be very lengthy. So you should feel blessed for your meeting this evening. And but at the same time, I think this is something that does deserve the concern of this body, because we task the HRC with looking and caring for those aspects of the historic treasures in Lawrence. And Oak Hill Cemetery, by any measure, is a historic treasure. I mean, it's the most famous people in Lawrence. That's where they are.
Thank you.
Any questions that I can help comment on at this point? I appreciate, again, Chair and Commissioners, I appreciate having the opportunity to express this concern, and I hope you will share the concern. And ideally, yes, that you will express that concern to the Planning Commission for their consideration. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do we, Lynn, do we have any ability to comment on or recommend, because Oak Hill Cemetery is, what it is a landscape with, it's a cemetery. So there's a lot of landscape there. So can we put a recommendation on the rezoning that says something about keeping landscape features, or is it?
Well, if I may, if we could send a letter recommending a condition to the rezoning that during construction, no impact would affect Oak Hill Cemetery.
This is Commissioner Meyer. I mean, that's a pretty vague recommendation. I mean, I just, and I guess the question in my mind is the issue, when we're talking about the rezoning, is the issue about the density, or is the issue about the manner in which the project is constructed, or all of it?
all of it.
I mean, because obviously anybody's going to have to take measures when they're doing the project. While we're at it, perhaps we could recommend that the city actually maintain Oak Hill Cemetery because it's a mess, but that's another matter.
And so this, if we go back to the staff recommendation, which I've lost, it says increasing the setback to 50 feet. So I'd like to discuss that. I think that,
Well, that's, well, along the western and southern property line. So the western property line would be partially in the environs of Oak Hill,
right, the western and the southern, right?
but the
Corner.
southern would not be in the environs of.
Oh, the north, right, the northwest is.
It's the northwest. And then the trees, I believe, the trees are everywhere. I'm not sure exactly where the oldest trees are, but I know there's some 200-year-old trees on the property.
Yeah, I think we're treading on ground on kind of on this line between historic protection and other things. And we want to protect the historic resource. That's our purview, but we also don't want to lose an opportunity to make our thoughts known.
Exactly.
So yes, I think you're right. We need a letter but what does that letter say?
Well, I would recommend a letter that says, addressed to the Planning Commission, that we ask that you consider the potential impact of construction on the environs of Oak Hill Cemetery before you make your decision.
I believe
Is that
Commissioner
still too
Meyer
vague?
is thinking it should be more specific.
Then do we want to say, please consider the impact of sandblasting, of destroying rock in order to build the proposed project, should you decide to rezone it?
We should use some more specific language about what.
Please don't hurt the gravestones and monuments in Oak Hill Cemetery. I don't know what else to say.
Protective measures in place, or monitoring, or limit the use of blasting.
Do not destroy the gravestones and monuments. Do not use any method, any construction method that would destroy or harm the gravestones and monuments in the environs of Oak Hill Cemetery.
That's great.
Aren't there houses that are much, much closer?
Yes, but we can only talk about Oak Hill, all right? So I'm talking about Oak Hill. I want the Planning Commission to remember that Oak Hill is a national treasure,
Yes.
a national, state, and a Lawrence treasure.
Okay.
So I don't know how much more specific we can get.
Well, we know things that they might not think about, like
Right,
vibration.
right. Like go visit the southeast corner and look at how fragile a lot of those stones are. Like Charles Langston's on the ground, but there's others, standing up that, I mean, in terms of vibrations, that, I mean, I just can't, I can't imagine the vibrations. I can't imagine what that would do. But I can't imagine that the stones would not be harmed.
Well, like I said, there is a way of chipping the stone out of the ground that does not require blasting, which also produces a vibration, but it's less.
Typically, they only do blasting when they're doing like a sanitary sewer, something that goes straight down narrow like this, where they don't want to, you know, if there's just a hillside with rock or base, they can just go in and peel it out like this really easy. We don't have granite or anything. We don't have any hard rock. It's all real soft.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The letter to the planning commission is, please be aware. Please remember, please consider the potential harm, the potential impact that construction may have on the gravestones and monuments of Oak Hill Cemetery, which is on the National, State, and Lawrence Register too, right? I know it's on the National and State in Lawrence. It's
Okay.
on all of them.
It's
It's our Arlington.
occurred to me that we didn't ask if there was any additional public comment on this item.
I don't see any comment online.
Okay, we don't see any. So Lynn, we would like to send a letter to the planning commission.
And can you state what you would like the letter to say? And then I would draft the letter and send it to Chair Coleman to sign.
Well, I believe the consensus is that, well, I don't want to speak.
Yeah, is that
for
we
you,
need to probably vote on the general language of the letter. Jody, do you have some, Commissioner Meyer, do you have some recommended language to adjust?
Not really. This is Commissioner Meyer, and I don't know that we need to take a vote on that, do we, Lynn? I mean, I think we can just direct you to do it.
That would be correct. No vote is required.
Right.
No vote is required. Great.
Okay.
I mean, I think what you're saying, Jeannie, is that you want them to take into consideration the construction methods and how that may negatively impact the Oak Hill Cemetery. I mean,
Correct.
if you want to simplify it.
Correct. Because Oak Hill is in the environs, portion of Oak Hill is in the environs.
Yeah, and as your recommendation says, Lynn, I think the maintaining the 50-foot setback and the trees would be our recommendation as well.
In drainage. I'm an old stormwater lady, so I think drainage is a forthcoming issue coming down the pike.
Mhm. All right, does that bring it to a close then?
I just wanted to acknowledge another letter that we all received from Carrie Altenburn in regard to the stone pier. And if there's I'm not sure how to respond to that, or how, Lynn, how you might be responding to Mr. Altenburn on his question here. He's wondering why terms specifically what you need to know about the transportation of Lawrence. It's not already contained in the nomination. I was just curious what the.
Right, and I'll be in contact with him, looking at transportation along Massachusetts Street and how it was important and how it existed and what type of transportation happened across the bridge. Just basically what the transportation system was like when the bridge was constructed and how that changed with the construction of the bridge. And I think he sent me a lot of information on the historic bridge that answered the questions that I had when I was writing the nomination staff report. So hopefully we'll have all this information put together and it will be on your November agenda.
Okay, because my concern was offering proof that the vestige of that pier existed during the 1882 lynching, which is the whole point of that the coalition is addressing here. And my question was whether just from a historical standpoint, I just wanted to double check that stone pier survived the 1903 flood. I know, and I know 1903 really destroyed the north side of the bridge primarily, but I wasn't sure about how much it affected the south side and if it affected that south pier or not.
And I do not know the answer to that. That was not submitted in the
Okay.
nomination information.
All righty.
And a lot of the information that was submitted after the fact came from questions staff had while drafting the nomination about the bridges and when they were built. It is a unique object. We've not nominated an object to the Lawrence Register of Historic Places yet. So this is a learning curve for everyone. Since it is a remnant of an event that is significant, but it is also needs to be significant for the bridge. And so that was the remaining questions that staff had. And I believe they have addressed those except for doing a little bit of basic knowledge on the transportation system and how it interacted with the bridge.
I thought the bridge went up like in the 1870s, as I recall.
I want to say 1874, maybe.
That sounds good.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, the first bridge. Yeah. Because, and I know you have photos of all that, of the first bridge.
I do now. I did not have them with the original application.
Okay.
So you're happy with the application now?
Yes, and we need a little bit more information about the transportation, but I think I can relay that to the coalition, exactly what we're looking for.
Okay. Then I would like to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry,
you.
I had surgery on my foot 2
Oh,
weeks
yeah.
ago, and that's why I'm not there in person, because it's just a real pain to get around on my knee scooter. So
We
How's it
understand.
going? You okay?
it's all right. It's all right. I had surgery on my Achilles tendon, so it's no small thing. Maybe next month.
Well, thanks for joining from home.
Thank you.
Okay.